Warning: the following podcast contains graphic content that may be disturbing or triggering to some listeners. Discretion is advised. The Papa Tango Sierra Delta podcast is available free of charge thanks to the support of Cracked Armor.
Their mission is to raise awareness for PTSD, TBI, and mental health to support those who struggle. By creating an army of warriors who represent the gear, their hope is that it will send a message to others that they are not alone.
Go to crackedarmor.com, say hi to Mark Long, read about the story, and find some research information about PTSD. And if you can, look good while supporting Cracked Armor by buying some gear.
(10-9). Did you say Papa Tango Sierra Delta? 10-4.
There's so much left to do, so many things I wanna say, and I say, don't make the change. If it rains every single day, I'll fight to blow it all away.
This is episode 21 of the Papa Tango Sierra Delta podcast. My name is Larry Payton, and I have been diagnosed with complex post-traumatic stress. Have you ever considered that your operational stress injury was actually a positive thing that happened? Hold on. Give me a second. There's been a number of things going on the past week that's really had me thinking deep. And I realized as well that I still have a lot of anger inside of me. Now, there's good reason I have a lot of anger. The biggest thing to take into consideration is that I am still in what I call no man's land. I have no idea what's going to happen to me. I remain off duty due to PTSD symptoms. However, I don't know if I'm returning to work. I don't know if I'm being medically retired. I don't know if I do return to work, if I'm going to the same place, if I'll be transferred somewhere else, if I'll be transferred to a different province. I don't know if I want to go back to work. I don't know if my psychologist will allow me to go back to work. I don't know if I want to retire. I don't know if I'm ready to retire. And I don't know what the hell I want to do with myself after all this. So I feel stuck in this no man's land, and I felt stuck here for a while because, in fairness, I have been stuck here for a while. And, in fairness, this is not the first time I've been stuck in such a place. You see, one of the things I've never shared about myself was my involvement in the mass shooting here in Nova Scotia. I was not one of the members who attended the scene that night. I was not one of the members who went throughout that day tracking him down. And I was not one of the members that was there when he was finally terminated. However, I was involved a lot from that point onward. I'm not really prepared to, at this point, discuss my involvement. What I do want to say is that shortly after this occurred, things really changed. Life changed for me. Around, I think it was May or June, there was an email sent out to members here in Nova Scotia. And the message said that everyone who's been involved in the investigation will be contacted, will be supported, and them and their family will be offered the help that is needed, especially mentally, to ensure that everyone is okay and can get through this. It's great. It's fantastic. I remained involved in the investigation for months. When August or September rolled around, there was a media release that stated the RCMP&H division had successfully contacted everyone who was involved with the investigation and want to share that everyone is receiving the support and the help that they need. I was not contacted. Nothing. Yeah. That to me was pretty much life-changing. And I think for a number of reasons. And I look back and go, what is it that broke you here? I don't know if it's because I worked alone for so long in my first post and I had no one to talk to. I don't know if it's because I've had to experience so many traumatic events and the emotions that follow without any support. I've never done a critical debriefing. Ever. No. I guess what I'm trying to say is that for a long time, I felt that I was alone pretty much my entire career. And it's one thing to feel something. I mean, we all get these feelings. I guess I felt like a number for a long time. I felt like a number. Despite what I've done, despite what I've accomplished, and I have no issue tooting my horn on that, I've done solid work. But I always felt like I was alone. And then when this happened, when I failed to be contacted, even though my name was all over the news, it doesn't take much Googling to find that out to see what my involvement was. But I was forgotten about, completely alone. That eventually was the smack that knocked me off whatever horse I was on. That was it. That was when shit started going downhill hardcore for me. Shortly after that, my wife requested, and I say requested, I mean, she didn't get angry, she didn't demand, but she certainly strongly requested that I go see someone because things were not the same with me. And she had noticed that I'd been going downhill for a while. So I did. That's when I made contact with my psychologist. I found my psychologist completely on my own. The outfit didn't get involved with that. That was me. I'm still with that psychologist, and all I can think, there had to be someone looking over me. There just had to be, because she has been what I needed. And I'm very, very thankful for that. I tell her after every session how much I appreciate her. But I'm still dealing with that, and I'm angry about that. I was offered, as part of a bigger group, to be supported. I expected it. I was waiting for it. And I never received it. That's tough. It was on me anyway. I won't get into much more in terms of what happened thereafter. There are definitely some drastic things that occur that I will share at some other time. Definitely going to make your eyebrows raise and your head shake. Fast forward to December, when I finally have a point, and there is a point. It's not random. There becomes a point that something happens, and I just say, I can't take this anymore. And I step back, and I know I need a break. I am in a very, very bad place. I need to step away. And so I did. And I've been away since. That was the first week of December. It is now the end of June. I heard from a disability manager in Manitoba. She said she was trying to cover off for Nova Scotia because they were overtaxed right now, understaffed. I'm not sure, just busy. That's fine. It made no difference to me. Okay. That was February. I hadn't heard anything since. That is until I sent an email on Thursday, just this past Thursday, spoke to a superior and mentioned that I haven't been contacted. I received a phone call on Friday from an occupational nurse with the outfit. I was told that somehow my file got put in the wrong place and I had been forgotten about, that I should have been contacted earlier, and that she was sorry. It was great to hear the apology because I did not get that the first time at all. No one has ever apologized for failing to reach out to me. But you can't help but think, that's twice I've been forgotten in a short amount of time. That's twice I ought to have been contacted. I ought to have been offered help. I ought to have been supported. And I wasn't. Just completely left flapping in the wind. I'd been off for 6 months, over 6 months, and never heard from a person other than a disability manager in Manitoba. One call. So, yes, I am angry. And I don't know what the fuck I'm supposed to do about that all the time. And I know that my anger comes through at times, especially on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. I understand that, and I accept that. Because ultimately I believe where there is anger, there is always pain underneath. And I do have pain underneath. I am genuinely saddened, disappointed, upset, devastated, I guess. And that's beyond all the fucking traumatic things I've seen. I mean, we're talking right now just a sanctuary trauma. But it's that sanctuary trauma, as well as a couple moral injuries, which I'll get into at some point, that really shattered my foundation and put me to where I am now. For all you out there, hands up if you've ever faked being happy because you were more worried about making other people uncomfortable than you were about being open and honest about how shitty you were actually feeling. I mean, I have a funny feeling there's been some hands raised. And that's where I was for a long time. And that's where I no longer am. I am not concerned anymore about just saying what I think, what I feel. So some days that can be very angry and it may come off as being cold. And it may not be the message that you want to hear. And I do apologize for that. Well, sort of. I am real. I am expressing my real feelings. I cannot be told how I should and shouldn't feel, for I will feel whatever it is I feel. And I refuse to ever be on this mic and waste your time with someone who is being fake. To me, I would be fake if I was not expressing my real world. Sometimes I'm happy on here, sometimes I'm motivational, and sometimes I'm sad. But that's just because those are the feelings I experience at the time of recording. And that's okay. Remember that. What you're feeling right now is okay. And be okay with it. I recorded a video for Mental Health, MENTELL, health.ca. And I want to share what I said in that video. I advised that to get out of my own head, there were two things that gave me the most immediate sense of satisfaction. The first was when I started accepting myself for who I am and who I am not. I am a realist. I try to be an optimist as much as I can, but I am a realist. And as much as it's fantastic that there are people out there that will speak and say whatever you put your mind to, you can accomplish, whatever it is, I lean the other way. I do believe whatever you put your mind to, you can work your ass off and you can make yourself better and you can improve on who you are 100%. It just changes, however, what it is you're trying to achieve. Because sometimes I think we reach way too high for the stars and completely forget the importance of the journey. That, to me, is where you can achieve whatever you put your mind to, by just committing to the journey. Because achieving does not always mean success. It does not always mean life is a fucking Hallmark movie with a happy ending. But we can work hard. We can stay focused. We can push ourselves and set goals. And we can get our hands dirty working to achieve it. But please don't ever think that you failed because you did not achieve the ultimate goal. So long as you worked hard, got your hands dirty, dove in, gave it your all, you didn't fail. You set a new standard for yourself is what you did. You did not fail. Maybe you needed to reanalyze. Maybe you needed to go back to the drawing board. Could be a number of things, but it's not a failure. So that's part of accepting yourself for who you are and who you're not. The other thing I said on that was I stopped giving a fuck what other people thought. That resonated with a few people, and I think in both a positive and a negative way. And let me just say, you can't live by what other people think. It's just not plausible. I mean, I truly believe that our biggest concern about what other people think is because we're all guilty of it. We're all guilty of thinking shit about people. It's true. You know it's true. Someone's here talking to you, you interact with them, they're leaving, and you're like, guy's a bit of a fucking asshole. What a dick. Right? Sure you do. Of course you do. That person, I bet you've interacted with again since. That person, I'm willing to bet, is a work colleague or a friend or maybe even a family member. But you've interacted with them again. Did that person know what you thought? Fuck no. I mean, unless you told him, no. Does it look like it affected that person's thoughts about themselves? That it changed them, what you thought? That they did something different because of what you thought? That they were upset because of what you thought? No, because you thought it. And that is a realm other people cannot enter unless it comes out in another way. You thought it. My point is, if you're worried what other people are thinking about you, and if they are thinking of you in a negative way, get over it. Yes, some people are thinking of you in a negative way. That is it. You cannot control it. But you need to be true to who you are and to whom you want to be, not what other people may think. You are setting yourself up for complete failure if you are living by what other people think. Well, what do I mean by that? Simple. You'll never know what they think. So no matter what you do, unless they share it in some other way, you don't know what they think. So stop trying to live by it. Stop trying to impress people by it. Be you. Know who you are. Know who you're not. Stop caring about what other people think. All right, that's out there. As I started off, this may actually be something positive that happened to you, your operational stress injury. I didn't forget I said that. On Wednesday this week, I knew I needed a reset. I was having a tough fucking week. Yeah, I was having a shit week. On Tuesday this week, I melted down for the first time in a long time. And I just got to a point that I felt overwhelmed. And I know now that is not a good place for me when I start feeling overwhelmed. And I have to do a better job identifying that earlier and removing myself from those situations that make me feel overwhelmed, so I can get myself back down on the ground, calm down, and then return to the things that made me feel overwhelmed. So on Wednesday, I met a friend of mine, Rob Truscott, at Old Betty's Brew House. We had a quick lager before we headed to Canna Connect in Lower Sackville. I'd never been to Canna Connect before. It's beautiful in there. Loved it. Absolutely gorgeous inside. Really cool feeling. And the people were just as down to earth as you could expect. Super comforting, super supportive, super warm. It really was inviting, and I felt like I should be there. We attended to hear a presentation from Mike Terry. Now, Mike Terry was a guest on the show. His episode was called Imposter Syndrome, and if you haven't heard it, I recommend you go back. It's fantastic. Mike's amazing because he's a retired combat veteran who was diagnosed with PTSD and still managed to stay in the Canadian Armed Forces for another 16 years, including an additional deployment. That's amazing. Mike said some things that really resonated with me. Mike had also showed a strength that I'm not sure I'd seen before. You see, during Mike's presentation, he talked about his suicidal ideations. And although he never had a plan, per se, he did constantly think about it and was convinced that he was going to kill himself. Mike's parents were at Canna Connect that night, and that is the first time they had heard one of Mike's presentations. So I can only imagine how difficult that was on Mike and how difficult that was for his mother and father to hear. The fact they were sitting right in front of Mike when he said that, that is an amazing strength, to be honest, and to be out there and to say those things. A lot of respect for Mike. That ended up being a reset I needed. That ended up getting me out of my own head again, calming the fuck down, getting back to the ground, and realizing there's work to do. One of the things Mike said is, I do not have to prove myself to belong anywhere. And that is true. Remember that. You do not have to prove yourself to belong anywhere. So, back to the beginning. Why in the hell is this operational stress injury in any way, shape, or form a positive thing? For me, there's a realization that anything in life that's difficult is because I haven't experienced it before and because it's worth it. Make a note of that. It's the same for you. If you are finding this path difficult, it is only because you have never experienced it and because it is worth it. That which you are trying to achieve is worth it. The road is bumpy because it has not been walked enough, because it is difficult, and a lot of people avoid difficult things. You have not. You have accepted it. You are walking it. You are pushing through it. You might not be fucking racing on that trail, and you don't need to race on that trail, but you are still on that trail, and you are still moving forward. And you need to fucking give yourself some credit for that, because that is awesome. Absolutely awesome. I had an email from a listener this week that said, keep battling and keep healing loudly. It will save lives. And I really appreciate those words, and they hit home for me. And so this podcast, I use this to heal loudly. And I encourage you to step up and heal loudly. I encourage you to be proud of your journey. If you've never seen this before, go online and search Kintsugi Bowl. A Kintsugi Bowl is an artwork piece done in Japan. You see, they take a perfectly manufactured bowl, gorgeous, beautiful, all kinds of designs, just stunning. And then they break it. You think that's it. The bowl is done. I mean, you can try to do something with that bowl, I guess maybe somewhat glue it back together. It's never going to be the same. It looks horrible. But the Japanese take those broken pieces and they use gold to put that bowl back together. It all of a sudden becomes a different sign of beauty. It is gorgeous. It is not necessarily better than what it first was, but it certainly is not worse than what it first was. And arguably, it was an absolutely positive change. The gold that mended the bowl back together is scars, but those scars are beautiful. And those scars show that if you feel broken, You are not, and you can come back stronger than you ever were. Let's take a quick break.
This episode of the Papa Tango Sierra Delta podcast is brought to you thanks to the support and financial sponsorship of Cracked Armor. Go to crackedarmor.com, read the story, buy the gear, wear it, to send a message to others who are struggling that they're not alone.
Also, check out Willow Tree Farm, care of Jason Subkowicz, another member who is struggling with PTSD and who frequently updates his Instagram to share his story. You can follow him at jason.subkowicz. That's jason.Sierra Oscar Bravo Kilo Oscar Whiskey India Charlie Zulu.
We are back from the break. Thank you very much for sticking around for the Papa Tango Sierra Delta podcast. On today's episode, we've got a pretty damn special guest, the one and only JP Cervantes. JP is the founder of Nous Defions Group. It is a business owned and operated by special operations vets, providing services to military, law enforcement, businesses, and private industries. JP is also a motivational speaker and PTSD TBI awareness speaker for veterans. JP, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, brother. I really appreciate that you took the time to join us. I know you are a crazy busy man between speaking, between your business work, between your work on TV and movies, and as a person who's providing expert consultation services to those places. JP, please introduce yourself and tell us about your journey.
Like you said, I'm JP Cervantes. Was born and raised in Puerto Rico. So, yeah, I grew up in Carolina, Puerto Rico. That's where my journey really started since I was a little kid. I was always involved into small business. I was an entrepreneur since I was like 8 years old.
Nice.
Yeah, I was running around my neighborhood, either washing cars, doing yards for my neighbors, which you don't see a lot of kids doing that these days anymore.
No.
Cleaning up garages and stuff like that. And then I even started repairing bicycles in my house. I have my own little pet shop.
Wow,
so,
man. Wow.
I mean, you name it, I was running around. But since early age, I was always interested in the military. And I joined the Civil Air Patrol. And I don't know if a lot of people know what that is. But it's basically an auxiliary side for cadets, for young kids from the Air Force. And it's an Air Force program, a U.S. Air Force program. I got started with that, and I really enjoyed it. I liked the leadership. I liked, having structure. Later on, after that, I became a bartender. I went to college. I was bartending at the same time. I was taking private pilot classes at the same time. And I got interested in the Air Force ROTC. So I joined the ROTC, and really enjoyed it. I was in my second year when I decided, you know what, this is enough. I know what I want. The ROTC don't have to tell me that. So I'm just going to join the Army now. So I joined the Army in 1995. I went infantry and airborne infantry contracts. So I went to Fort Benning, where I did my infantry training. From right there, went to urban school, then was assigned to the 82nd Airborne Division. To make my military career short, I was in the 82nd. I was stationed in Panama as well in the infantry. Then from Panama, I came back to Fort Bragg, where I started my Special Forces qualification training. I finished that, and all the way until I retired in 2011, I was in Special Forces. So I had a great career. I had multiple deployments to Afghanistan, Iraq. I've been in every single country but two in Central and South America. So I cannot complain.
Shit, no.
I had a great time.
Wow.
Yeah, I had a great time. I traveled the world, went to Africa, to Haiti, to the Middle East, to Europe. So I really enjoy my military service. And what is funny is I know a lot of people that served 20 years in the Army and never left the States once. So I was very lucky.
Yeah, that's true. That's right. Yeah. That's not an easy thing to do anymore.
No. Yeah. After I retired, that's honestly when everything started shifting in my life, right? Because all I knew was the military. That's all I knew. I knew that strict regimen. I had to get up. I know what uniform I was going to wear. I knew all that stuff. Then all of a sudden I retired, and, I had a medical retirement because I had a Humvee rollover accident. And I crushed P4, 5, and 6, cervical 6 and 7. I had a carotid artery was lacerated when I had the accident. So
Jesus.
They had to, I was bleeding out. I had 13 bones broken in my face. So I had a facial reconstruction.
Holy shit.
So even after that, it took me nothing but 8 months to get back in the game and start running around doing stuff. But the problem was that I did it too fast, right? Because I was so eager. You know how we are. We're hard-headed.
That's right.
And we don't going to take bed for an answer. Our friends are out there fighting the fight, and we're sitting here in bed, and that's not us, right? So when we were doing all the physical therapy, I did it strictly the way they told me to do it, but I didn't do it slow enough. I just wanted to get it done and get released from physical therapy so I could get back to work. And that's exactly what I did. Well, I was doing fine for the first 3 years, and then all of a sudden my body decided, no, man, I'll give you 1 more year, and then after that you got to take a desk.
Yeah.
So, about 2009, I had to leave the operation of Detachment Alpha and go and be in an admin position. And at that point, my body just started taking a toll. So I ended up having a medical retirement, which was honestly the best thing that happened to me, even though that at that point I didn't admit that. It was the best thing that happened to me because at that point I could stay at home, take care of myself. So it took me about 1.5 years of actually taking care of myself before I started feeling better. So that's one thing I tell people all the time. And the Army's still there. The team's still running.
That's right.
They didn't miss a step without me.
That's right.
So I tell people all the time, the Army's still going to run, the military's still going to run. Yeah, people will miss you, but in a few years they'll be so busy, you don't even remember your name.
That's right.
But your family will. So you got to be healthy for your family. You got to make sure you take care of yourself.
Absolutely, brother.
So I did that. But then in that 1.5 years, right, that I was taking to recover, mentally, I was recovering physically, but mentally I was not, right? Because it was just not me, just being at the house all the time. I wake up in the morning, I'm going to go somewhere. One of my biggest struggles was trying to figure out what I was going to wear.
Yep.
And like, what am I going to wear? Normally, I know what I'm going to wear, right?
That's
I'm going to put a uniform on and go.
That's right. Yeah.
But now you got so many options. Do I wear slacks? Do I wear jeans? Do I wear khakis? What color am I going to wear? What color shirt? Polo shirt? And it just became a struggle, to be honest with you, with myself, trying to figure out what to do so that I can get better mentally. And it took me a while. I started doing contracts training the Marine Special Operations. So I did that for 5 years. Plus, I was running, through Nous Defions Group. I started running contract for, the U.S. Army, actual Special Forces as well, and civil affairs and PSYOPs and all that good stuff, and police departments in Puerto Rico and in South America. But that was keeping me busy, right? But mentally, I was trying to still find my place in the world, right?
Yep.
So I go what I'm doing is great. I'm doing great things. I'm helping other people make money, and I'm providing a service, and I feel I'm still relevant. I'm still giving back to the community with all my experiences. The youngest one, the youngest coming in, I'm teaching them something. So I felt used to, but still, oh man, I just couldn't find that big purpose. So eventually, I started getting involved a lot with mental health. So, I started losing a lot of friends to suicide. So I just became a big advocate for suicide awareness. Just started going around, if a plane called, I was there. I left my house at times at 3 o'clock in the morning to go and talk to someone,
Yeah.
I drove 5 hours before just to go and talk to someone for 2 hours and then drive back home,
Wow, brother.
But the thing is, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm making a difference to this one person and this other person, which is great because, I always tell people, if you can save one life, everything that you did was worth it, right? But at the same time, I was like, how am I going to make a bigger impact? How can I spread the word out there? And that's when I started the nonprofit Let's Walk It Out, 222-mile road march. And there's a big journey. It's 222 miles that we do in 10 days for suicide awareness and prevention. And let me tell you, ever since we started that, my purpose shifted. My reach to other people to be able to help them with the mental health problems got bigger. I now can reach out a little bit more than I did before. And that is good, right?
Absolutely.
Now we're getting phone calls or we're getting information or stories from people from all over the world. And I'm like, okay, now it's getting out there, right? Now we're making progress. Now, we know that, a lot of people, they love to say, let's end veteran suicide. Unfortunately, it's never going to end. And that's a reality that we got to face. It's not going to end. But we can definitely save a few lives, and we can slow it down. And we can establish better programs. We can establish better support, better help, better resources. That is going to end? No. But I think we can slow it down, and I think that we can definitely save a lot of lives along the way. So I got involved in that, and another thing that I got involved with through my company, Nous Defions, we were doing hostage rescue, right? So we were contracted out to do hostage rescue operations for kidnapping, for ransom, and things like that. So we set up the teams that did the recoveries. And in one of those contracts, shortly after that, we received a phone call that we thought it was a hostage situation, and ended up being a human trafficking situation.
Yeah.
So we got involved with that, and we rescued a little girl from human trafficking. And that became another purpose for me right after that. I was like, this is why we got the skills that we have. This is what we acquired during my 17 years of service. This is why I acquired all the skills, is so that I can make a difference in the world. And that's what I'm going to do. So ever since, we have rescued, I want to say right now, the count is to 84 people from human trafficking, mostly children.
It's amazing.
Oh, yeah. And I'll tell you what, the satisfaction you get from that is just amazing.
Absolutely.
We normally, unfortunately, human trafficking recovery operations are very, very expensive. You got intelligence on the ground, you got a support team, you got resources. I mean, it's a lot of money involved. So what we do as a company is we don't make profit of the contract. We just charge the client for the actual expenses. No money. We make no money, and we don't want any money.
Wow.
Because the satisfaction is when we see those kids, their faces, and we see that justice was done, then that's our satisfaction.
That's awesome. Amazing.
But yeah, man, that has been my journey. Lately, I've been focusing a lot in the human trafficking aspect and in mental health awareness, PTSD, but also for first responders. Because one thing I tell a lot of people is that, in the military, I saw horrible things. If I want to use a specific deployment, I would say there's one deployment to Iraq where it hit me the most, I want to say. Even though the other deployments, I lost friends, in this one, I saw a lot of children dead. Yeah. And I think that hit me the most, right?
Yes.
And that one haunts me still to this day. But what I tell people is that I probably never in my life will have to drive by that one hospital in Al Hila where I saw those children, right?
Right.
The difference with first responders is that they see horrible things every day. And a lot of times they have to drive by those places multiple times a day, sometimes on the way home. So they always have a constant reminder of the horrible things that they saw, and they can get away from it. There's no getting away from it because that happened right there where they live. At least I got to come back home and not drive by those places. So, first responders also go through a lot, and we also got to remember them.
Well said, brother. Well said. And I couldn't agree more. I mean, I'm a 22-year police officer with the Royal Canadian Mounted Police of the Mounties, and I've been all over the country. And yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's also the quick, there's no downtime in between seeing horrific things, dealing with horrific things. And it's the smells I keep talking about. The smells are what get me. But from dealing with that and then literally 20 minutes later, needing to be a dad and a husband again. And it's a mindfuck. It's crazy how that is a way of life for a while. JP, what got you involved in being a motivational speaker regarding PTSD and TBI awareness? Were you ever diagnosed? I know you dealt with some mental health issues as a result. Again, a huge thing is a structure is taken away. There's a lack of structure. So it's making very even simplistic, what people see as simplistic decisions based on clothing becomes a chore, becomes a challenge. So what is it that got you into, again, being such an advocate for those who are struggling with PTSD?
Well, to be honest with you, I didn't choose it. I think it chose me.
There you go. Yeah, I hear you.
No, the reason I say that is because I'm very outgoing when I'm around people. Let me get this straight. I really don't like people because I don't want people to think, oh, JP loves hanging around with a lot of people. No, I really don't like crowded places. I try to avoid crowded places, right? Yep. It gets too overwhelmed for me, and I'm looking at hands, what he's carrying, what he got in the pocket. It just gets too overwhelmed.
Absolutely.
But I do like the people that I know, right? The friends that I know, I do like hanging around them. And if they bring somebody new, I will always treat them very nice. So I'm very people person when it comes to that sense, right? And so I got a friend of mine one time that, he had a class that he had to give for his unit about mental health. And he was like, hey, JP, you had a lot of struggles. You got nightmares, of course. You got PTSD and all that. But it's like he tried to tell me, I know you're not handling it well, but you're figuring out ways of dealing with it or living with it, right? You got to embrace it. And I go like, yes, that's right. He goes like, well, do you mind coming and talking to my guys about mental health and let them ask questions? And I was like, yeah, sure. So I went over there and did that. And apparently ended up being a big success, according to them. I don't know. I don't remember, to be honest. I just thought it ended up being a big success to where the battalion commander invited me to talk to the battalion. So then I did that, and somebody woke up to me and was like, hey, have you considered doing motivational speaking? Because you got no idea that, because I always tell people, it's like, people are going to have a hard time understanding me. Not only I got an accent, but I got nerve damage. So in my parts of my mouth and my lips, I have no feeling.
Wow.
So when I try to pronounce some words, it might not come out right. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
So I tell people that. All the time. They're like, dude, you don't understand. It's like your accent and all that, it doesn't matter. It's like the things that you have to say, that's what matters. And people are really relating to you because you're very likable. You're not standing there telling like, oh, look at me and this badass. You're talking to them like you're just one of them. And they're related to them that way. So I was like, okay, perfect. Then after that, I got called not only to talk about PTSD, but to talk about military career or leadership and things like that in different colleges and schools and things like that. So that's how I got started. And to be honest, I haven't done one in probably over a year now. I haven't done any public speaking because, I was even supposed to go to Colombia and do one over there, but COVID canceled everything. So,
yeah, exactly.
Everybody was scared of COVID. I was not going to take the vaccine. So I was like, if you require the vaccine, I ain't coming.
There you go. JP, what are you seeing in terms of stigmatization with regards to PTSD in the military? So the reason I ask is, let's be honest, there's a lot of people who struggle and they're either failing to recognize it, but most people are really concerned about stepping out and talking about it. Is that something that you've seen a lot? And is there anything that you can offer to people who are concerned about being stigmatized as weak or whatever?
You're correct. You see, I am part of the Special Forces Association, and we, in our monthly meetings, suicide is one of the main topics every single time, right? How are we going to help our brothers and sisters dealing with suicide? And I know a lot of the commands have programs, right? Open door policy programs. Now, I know Special Forces now, almost every battalion got a psychologist in-house, right? So you can go directly to that psychologist and talk to them. And everything's supposed to be confidential, this and that. And you're not supposed to put a red mark on anybody who seeks mental health, right? Because it could be about anything. You go and see the psychologist, you can be talking about marital problems, not necessarily combat-related or anything like that, or you could be talking about financial problems, something like that. But as soon as you go and see a psychologist, somebody puts a red mark over you, right? And I think that even though this is what I'm seeing, even though that the commands and the generals and all these people are telling everybody, hey, seek help, we're not going to punish you for that. It is a lie. They get punished. So what ends up happening is you got one guy. Now, I understand both sides, right? So one side is me, I want to be able to go talk to a psychologist, right? Because I can talk to a friend, but a friend is probably going to give me the same attitude that I got, right? It's like, oh, screw this, screw that, blah, blah, blah. A psychologist got a better way of putting it, right? We're just too rough around the edges.
There you go. True, yeah. Right.
So I go like, go and talk to a psychologist. I get it. But the problem is then they see that as you can be a liability to the team because they don't know what's going on, right? So now the way the command looks at it is, do we want to deploy this guy not knowing really what's going on because they can't release that information? So the command got no idea what's going on with you, and you don't want to tell them because you want to be able to deploy. And now they're like, we just want to move him and put him in admin while he's dealing with whatever it is that he's dealing. But the problem is at that point, what you just did, you did exactly what you said you were not going to do.
Absolutely.
You're already pulling him off a team, you put him on admin, and now you added another stressor to whatever was going on with him. Because now he feels marginalized.
That's right.
Because he went and looked for help.
That's right.
Again, I understand the command side of the house, but there's got to be a different way of dealing with that, other than just somebody looking for help and pulling them out. Because if not, what we're going to have to do is everybody in the military that go to marriage counseling, then we got to pull them out of their jobs too,
That's true.
right?
Yeah, that's well said. That's well thought.
I mean, think about it, because we really don't know what's going on. We don't have access to those records, but they went to counseling, so we're going to have to pull them out of their jobs. Every general that went to marriage counseling, every sergeant major that went to marriage counseling, we're going to have to pull them out of their jobs because we really don't know what's going on behind doors.
Right. Yeah. I mean, because listen, you're right. I mean, stress in the home, I mean, that is an indication of someone struggling with post-traumatic stress. I mean, it's brought inside the house and it leaks onto the family. And so that very well could be an indicator. However, how in the hell are you going to pull everyone off being able to be deployed or being basically operationally fit if they're in marriage counseling? That's just not, it's not going to work. It's problematic.
And I think that mental health needs to start at the lowest level. One of the things that a friend of mine did in his team, he's in special forces, every month they always have like a little team day. They call it team day. It's where they come into a team room and they do nothing but, they're in civilian clothes and they do nothing but just get stuff ready or whatever. And they have a little talk with the team sergeant. They talk about, hey, this is how you guys are improving. This is what we can do better, blah, blah, blah. But he always brings up the fact, he starts talking about things that the team went through, right? So he goes like, hey, guys, let's talk about, anybody got anything to say about what happened in this deployment, in this operation? Anybody want to get anything out? Anybody want to say anything? And, sometimes at that lowest level, people start talking about it. They go like, oh, my God, that deployment really messed me up. And he's like, yeah, well, me too. How? Well, this way. And then somebody goes like, yeah, me too, man, but that's not really what got me. What got me was this. And then next thing you know, everybody's talking. And now they feel they have an outlet. They know that when they talk about it in front of their friends, they're not being seen as weak because everybody got the same problem.
It's absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, maybe not the exact same situation, but everybody's struggling somehow. So talking about it at the lowest level is always the best way to go. And then at that point, it might not even become an issue later because now they found an outlet. They're like, man, I can come here and I can talk to the guys at any time because I know they're not judging me. They sit there with me and talk about it.
And that's key.
But the problem is, like, a lot of times we think that we're so strong, right? That I go to a friend of mine and I tell him I'm struggling, that he's going to see me as weak. And it's not weakness. It is just sometimes you need to have somebody to talk to. And I tell people who to talk to better than someone who will really understand how you feel because it's been there.
That's right. That's right. And I mean, it leads credence to it as well, JP, because I mean, there was nothing more annoying to me when I first got diagnosed is try to talk to people who don't understand, who did not go through the shit that you've gone through, seen what you've seen, smell what you smelled. It would annoy me that, you would hear people go, I'm so sorry, I have sympathy. I don't want your sympathy. I'm not looking for your sympathy at all. I'm just trying to figure out what the heck is going on above my shoulders and between my ears because I don't really understand. And that's the ultimate important thing for people who are struggling is to have someone else to go to where there's already trust established, because trust establishment is huge. To have someone who has been through it that would understand the experience as opposed to people who don't. It becomes a huge reality. But as you said, it's that concern about us being seen as weak or as being scared. And in the jobs that we do and that you had done, the reality is that, well, I mean, it's okay to be scared. I mean, because if you're not scared in some of those situations, Jesus, I mean, there's probably something else going on there. I mean, it's okay to be scared. The weak thing is, in actual fact, you're not weak. In actual fact, your ability to talk about it is quite courageous because it can be intimidating and it's tough. And I think it's great that, like you said, to approach it at the lowest level and start just getting back to basics, where we actually talk to each other and not judge, as opposed to be fearful, that your team member, your patrol member, your whomever is going to look at you as being weak. And again, JP, the other side of it too is, hey, I mean, that's how we're trained, right? Combat breathing, push through, no matter what. You will be the one that returns. You will be the one that moves on. You keep going. And then it almost seems when you've got a mental health injury that you're sailing straight against the current on that and that you're going against your training. However, again, it's okay. It's normal and it's okay to not be okay. Well, I mean, I know it sounds overdone and stuff, but yeah, it's okay to not be okay. when we talk about the suicide epidemic, and I do get completely where you're coming from, because, I mean, there's not a reality that you're going to completely put an end to it. However, it certainly seems to be spiking again, at least when it comes to first responders. There's always been an issue with members of the military coming back and finding it difficult to reacclimate with all the horrors that they've seen. But also, you've got first responders now. What's your thoughts on the suicide epidemic, JP? And I mean, you've got the Let's Walk Out, the 222-mile Ruck March. But what else needs to be said about that? What are people missing when it comes to this? What are your thoughts on the suicide epidemic?
Man, I really think that a lot of people are, I wouldn't say ignoring, right? Because they're not ignoring the signs. I think they just don't understand them. For example, there's a lot of people that have made comments and made stupid comments like, what if I was not around? What is this? What is that? And then their friends look at it as, he's talking shit, right? Like, it's just, whatever, this and that. Now, if you asked me that in 1995 when I joined the Army, and there was a few people that said that, at that point, people ignored them all the time, right? Because most likely or not, they were looking for attention. But these days, it's completely different, man. When somebody says something like that, you got to jump on it, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
You have to immediately attack that. And it is not later. It is not, well, let's see how this works out. You got to attack it right there and then. And a lot of times it's just talking to them, right? If you just talk to them, that doesn't mean that you got to call a doctor and put him in a hospital,
No,
right? But you got to address that. Whatever they said, you have to address it. You can't just let them get away with it. Because if you let them get away with it, what you're making them think is like you really don't care. And if they mention it because they want you to know.
Yes, sir.
And I've seen it all the time where people say things like that and they get ignored. And now, I have seen suicides where, to be honest, nobody saw it coming. Nobody. Not a single person.
Right.
They didn't show any signs, and they just did it. But that's not everyone. Like 90% of suicides, they gave some kind of sign. They said something to someone, giving them a warning. And that's what we got to be looking at. I think we're missing that. We're seeing people that ask for help, and then we don't offer it. I've seen a lot of people on social media going like, if you need me, call me. If you need me, call me. And when you tell them, hey, can you come here and help me out? I'm not feeling well. Well, I'm in bed already, man. We'll talk tomorrow or this and that. I'm serious. 100%. It's like, if you're going to do that, then they might as well. Don't do it just to jump in the bandwagon of what social media is doing, right? So I've seen it to where I tell people, like, if you got somebody coming into your team room, right? And I say team room because I'm thinking special forces. That's where I spend most of my career, right? But it can be in an office, any office setting or work setting or home. But if you see a teammate that sits there in the team room and, you see him down, you ask him, are you okay? And he said, yeah, I'm fine. But in your heart, he's not okay. Don't walk away, right? Do not walk away. At that point, you know what? This is what I tell my friends to do. Is like, you tell them, you know what? Put your CVs on, get up right now. We're going to go and have a drink. We're going to talk. I don't care what you talk about, but you're going to talk. You want to talk about sports? We're going to talk about sports. You want to talk about bicycle, cars? We're going to do that, but you will talk with me. I'm not giving you a choice. You're going to get in the car with me, and you're going to go.
Absolutely.
And then you take them out, and more times than not, they will be like, oh, man, I'm going through some stuff at home, or, man, I think I'm getting fired from the team, or, man, I think I got in trouble, or whatever that might be, they eventually open up. But the problem is, if they tell you they're okay and you walk away knowing that they're not, you fail.
I couldn't agree more.
You failed.
I love that you're blunt with that too, JP. You failed. You did. You failed. And this is the thing is, a lot of times I find people that, they'll go back when they look at something that happened, so-and-so committed suicide. And it's like, well, I mean, he had a bit of a drinking problem. Yeah, and I mean, he was definitely going through a divorce. And he really, stopped socializing. Hello, those are huge signs. And exactly, they're being missed.
Yeah.
They're being missed. So it's not even...
The thing is that we don't go out of our way to talk to them. We just ask them, how are you doing? I'm doing okay. And then you walk away. You got to go out of your way to make them talk to you. Or not make them, but I tell a lot of people, I don't care if you talk to me about your problems. I just want you to talk to me.
It's a big thing. It's just not being alone, right?
That's it.
Because you feel alone. You feel genuinely like you're alone. You could be in a packed room, but you can feel like you're alone. and you can be alone and you can feel like you're even more so alone. It's a very odd dichotomy of shit that happens in your mind with regards to this post-traumatic stress or traumatic brain injuries, which you a lot of times don't know. And I don't know, JP, what's your thoughts? I tend to almost think that when I ask a person, hey, how are things going? And they respond that, oh, I'm good. That's almost become a sign. It just seems like if someone says, yeah, I'm good. I'm doing good. Okay. Yeah. Really? Do you hear that a lot?
Oh yeah, I hear that a lot. But you know the ones that I don't like is when people say, living the dream.
Oh yeah.
Living day by day.
Right.
You know,
it's true.
I'm living the life. When they give you those answers, they're not really happy.
It's true.
One of the things I always, normally when people, and I think this a reply that I give to a lot of people, and they get amazed when I tell them this because they ask me, how are you doing today? Normally, the first thing I tell them is like, I'm doing great. I opened my eyes this morning. It was a good start.
That's right.
And they look at me, they're like, well, that's a good way of looking at it. I'm like, hey, if you open your eyes this morning, you're already winning, right? Because it could be worse.
Absolutely, brother. It changes quick, man. It changes quick.
Yeah, I mean, you can have financial struggles, you can have family problems, but none of that can be fixed if you don't open your eyes.
100%. And, I've got a friend of mine who describes it very much as making a long-term solution to what really likely is a short-term problem. Yeah, that's the reality of it. There's help out to the get. There is assistance. Let's rely on each other, just like JP said. Seriously, go speak to people, rely on people. You go speak to your friends. Seriously pick up on the signs because, if you really are not in a situation that you want to help, then don't put yourself out there in terms of on social media to be on the bandwagon. And I think that's a great point, JP, because you see that quite a bit. Absolutely.
And you know what? And the worst thing that you can do is isolation, right? So I am the kind of person that when I'm having anxiety or when I'm having a bad day, I like to be alone, right? I stay at home,
right.
Which normally that's what I do when I'm not doing any work, right? I'm at home anyway.
Yep.
But doing it too much is not good, right? So if I notice that I'm at home one day and the next day I'm still down and I'm still at home, like I don't feel like doing anything, the third day, at least I will drive down to the local bar right here, which there's a little corner that we call the old people corner because we all retirees sit there and just talk crap, right?
Yeah.
So I just sit in that corner, drink a beer or two, and they make me laugh. It's always a joke. They make me laugh. And you know what? I'm like, okay, I made somebody laugh today. They make me laugh. I'm good to go. I go home and I feel better, right? You got some fresh air. You went out. You talked to some people that got things in common, and then you went back home. And that's okay to do that. Don't get tore up and drunk, but have a drink. Even if you want to have coffee or water, whatever it is. But staying at home all the time is also not good. You got to go out and get some fresh air and talk to someone.
Absolutely. Let's be honest. When you're alone, that's when you're most dangerous. That's when shit can really go sideways really fast. And when you start, again, making some quite poor decisions with regards to how you're going to fix this. And then getting out, and just being around people all of a sudden gives you a sense of being grounded again, gives you a sense of what you're here for, that it's not all the doom and gloom that seems to surround you nonstop. Getting out is huge. And yeah, I agree with you too, JP. I am not a people person. I have realized that I'm good with my friends and I'm good with people who I say are kind of broken like me, that get it, that understand it, that, you can have this 45-minute period of silence and it doesn't ever feel awkward because you both know you're just somewhere else for the time being, right?
That's right.
Right? Yeah, man, that's the way it goes. JP, look, I'm not going to shit you, man. I could talk to you for a long time, but I'm also very respectful of the fact that you are a busy man, and I'm genuinely appreciative that you made time today to talk to me about this and about, your journey. JP, when it comes to PTSD, when it comes to the suicide awareness and prevention, when it comes to just your overall journey and what you've seen, I guess what I'm asking is there anything else that you would like to add? Anything else you want to say? The floor is yours.
Oh, yeah. There's two things I want to end with. One is personal responsibility. Okay? There's a lot of people that use PTSD as an excuse to be an ass or to act up or get away with stuff. Because they know if they said, well, I'm a combat veteran, I got PTSD, a lot of people will give them some kind of sympathy, right? I can tell you, for an example, I got a friend of mine that acts like an ass to people all the time. And he goes like, I got PTSD. I'm like, no, bro, I knew you before you had PTSD. You were always an ass. Don't use it as an excuse. You know, it's like, I knew you before, bro. It's like, you can bullshit me. You know?
That's awesome. You were an asshole beforehand. Yeah.
Yeah, you were an asshole before you had PTSD. So you can fool me. But you know what? I don't like when people use it. And I think that people go like, well, I go in public and people piss me off and I yell at them and I'm like, then take responsibility, right? You know the way I did that? For a long time, I couldn't go to Walmart. I couldn't go grocery shopping for different reasons, right? The fluorescent lights in the grocery stores, I got TBI, right? Traumatic brain injury.
Yes, sir.
So the fluorescent lights give me a headache. But other than that, it was people. I just didn't want to be around people. And believe it or not, every time I went into a different aisle of the grocery store, I needed to clear the corner. It was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know who's coming. I gotta clear that hallway.
Absolutely,
right?
man. Yeah.
So anyways, I just couldn't go. But you know what? It's called personal responsibility. If I know that, right? If I know if I go to the store, I'm gonna be mean to people, I'm gonna be an asshole to people that are around me, then I don't go to the grocery store. I found out I could order, and that was back in the day, right? I could order online and go and pick it up in the parking lot. So that's what I started doing. I started just going, curbside pickup. I pick up my groceries. I didn't have to go in the store, and I came back home. You know, that eliminated me being an ass to people for a problem that is my problem, not their problem,
yep,
right? So we can expect people to tiptoe around us when we are the problem, not them. And I'm not saying we are the problem. It is our problem. It is our situation. We can't put that burden on anybody else, right?
Yes,
so I started doing that. I started doing online shopping and things like that. And I was like, okay, now with time, I started getting better. And, you know, I go with my girlfriend grocery shopping, even though I don't like it. But when I go with her, I'm not paying attention, right? Because I'm with her, so I'm really not paying attention to a lot of other people.
Right.
But when I go alone, I'm always scanning. I'm scanning my sector. So I tell people, take personal responsibility, right? If you know you don't like certain things, if you know you're going to act up in certain environments, then stay away from those environments, right? Because it's not everybody else's fault that you're going through that, right?
Right.
Take responsibility for your own actions and don't blame PTSD on everything. Now, I understand some things will trigger someone's PTSD. Got it. But what I don't like is when everything that happens to them, they blame it on PTSD.
Yeah, that's not the way to go. No.
Yeah, that's the part I don't like, because then it makes the rest of us look stupid.
Yeah. No, you've got a point. Yeah. It doesn't give you the right to be an asshole. I mean, you can understand that, again, when you're triggered or when you're activated, but that's something completely different.
And I did that a lot of times. Listen, a lot of times I've been in places and I start getting anxiety, I start sweating, and I just tell my friends, like, man, I got to go.
Yep, exactly.
And they look at me, they're like, are you okay? I'm like, bro, just anxiety. They're like, all right, go home, relax.
Yep.
Right? Because I knew at that point, if I stayed any longer, I was not going to be a nice person.
That's right. Yeah, that's the best way to be. But you're identifying it. You're taking personal responsibility, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Perfect. Yeah. And then the last thing I want to end with is this. I want to let everybody else that is out there hurting right now, because we all are in our own way. The pain, I will say the pain ends. The memories never go away, but the pain ends, right? And it doesn't completely dissipate. You just channel it in a different way. You use that energy from that pain in a different way. You just got to find what that way is for you, right? For me, it's getting out there and helping others. For you, might be something different, right? But what I'm saying is the pain ends, and that's one thing that we do with the rock march, right? Every single day we rock. It's 10 days, so we do an average of 22 miles per day. And let me tell you, it's painful.
Yeah.
We're working on pavement.
Yeah.
The heat, the hills, it's painful. Day 3, you're already hurt. But we always look for, okay, you know what, 10 more miles, 9 more miles. Hey, guys, 3 more miles and we're done, right, for the day.
Right.
You know, for the whole day, but for the day we're done.
Right, yeah.
We get to rest until the next day. But the thing is, I tell people 3 more miles, and I always like to tell them how many miles, you know, as we're rocking, how many miles we got left, because I'm letting them know pain will end. It will end at some point. All right? And you might take a break and it starts again, but guess what? It's going to end at some point. But it might not end when you want it, because guess what? This morning when I started this rock march, I wanted to end in the first mile, but it's not. I got 21 more miles to go, right?
That's right.
So I tell people the pain will end, not necessarily when you want it to, not today, maybe not tomorrow, maybe it might take years, but it will end. All you have to do is keep pushing through it because you've done it before. If you're in the military, if you're a first responder, you've been through pain.
That's right.
And you push through it. And sometimes you've been in pain trying to do something for somebody else. So why not push through the pain for you? Push through it. It's going to end at some point. Financial hardships, they end. Domestic problems, they end. They either get fixed or they end. One of those two, but it's going to end, right?
That's right.
So the thing is, you cannot fix it. It will never get better if you don't stick around. If you decide to cash out, then you fix nothing. Because all you did is you added more problems to all the people around you.
You said it, brother. 100% you said it and hit it on the head right there. JP, again, I really appreciate you taking the time for the podcast today. Thank you so very much. For everyone else, just to add on to what JP said, listen, personal responsibility is huge. Yeah, you need to be responsible for yourself and take note when you start becoming activated, when you start feeling those triggers getting hit. Take note that maybe it's time to remove yourself from the situation and get grips back on everything. Ground yourself. I know one of the things that my therapist has recently told me, she looked and she said, that tattoo you have on your leg, and I'm covered with them, JP, but she said, that tattoo you have on your leg, that's a new one, right? And I said, yeah. She said, you got that in January, yeah? And I said, yes, I did. She said, whenever you're feeling activated, the problem is you are going somewhere else. You are going back to a bad memory when things were needing you to be completely on alert. You're hypervigilant. You're becoming, very sensitive. Take a look at that tattoo and just use that to ground yourself back to it's now a different time. You are not in that situation that you were in. You are not in danger that you were that time. You never had that tattoo then. Bring yourself back to the time you're in now. So whatever it takes for people, for you guys out there that are listening, you guys and girls, please find a way to ground yourself. Find a way to remove yourself from situations. Don't be afraid to go out, but remove yourself from those situations. And again, to build on what JP said, yes, there is post-traumatic growth. And go in and look at jp-cervantes.com and just read right there what this man has been involved in since his military career. And I love that he has TVs, movies, he has businesses, he has nonprofit work, future projects, and then it says military and in brackets short. He has a short paragraph there because this gentleman is not being defined just by that. He is a person so much more than that. A person who has become the vice chairman of the board for North Star Ministries, the Human Trafficking Awareness and Prevention nonprofit. He's an ambassador to Special Forces Foundation, founder and executive director of Let's Walk It Out, the 222-mile ruck march, the Nous Defions Group, LLC. I mean, he's taken what's happened and he's used it to grow and help others. JP, you're an inspiration, brother, and people need to learn from that.
I appreciate it, man.
Thank you very much. For all you guys out there and girls, think about that. Take that into consideration. There is post-traumatic growth. That pain will subside. You extinguishing your light is not the solution. My name is Larry Payton. I have your 6. Please have mine.
Don't go away. There's so much left to do, so many things I wanna say, and I sing here. Don't make the change. If it rains every single day, I'll fight to blow it all away.